Hi, everyone. Welcome to eMediaChat. I think this is episode number 9. Anyway, next to me, right there, about 3,000 miles away, is Kirsten Rourke. Hey, Kirsten, how's it going today?
Hi, Rick. How are you?
I am doing great. It's a beautiful day out here, sort of. It's actually totally cloudy, but it looks nice. And we're doing well. How about you? How's the weather holding up over there in Massachusetts?
Not bad. Not bad. We don't even have any snow on the ground right now.
Oh, that's pretty good for November, right?
Yeah.
That sounds good. Well, Kirsten, we've got a really fun guest today. And a little different from our normal guests, which tend to be more media related. She is actually media related. She does a lot of work with media, but she does a lot of interesting things. Let's introduce her. Joining us today is JoannCorley. Hey, Joann, how are you?
Hey, Mr. Rick, I'm doing fine.
That sounds great. Well, you're coming from beautiful near Atlanta, Georgia.
That's right. It's a little bit cloudy today, but it's in the 50s, and that's great. It's not 20, so that's good.
That's true. You don't get snow out where you are, do you?
Not very often. We had our one big snow a couple of years ago, but last winter was so temperate we hardly even felt a winter.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like winter. I don't mind winter. Well, Joann, you do a lot of interesting things. And one of the things I love about you, when we first started talking, I kind of thought, well, Joann's just kind of your typical HR consultant, speaker, maybe not that exciting. And then I started looking at her stuff. And Joann's fun. She's a lot of fun. In fact, we're going to show you her website right here. So this is Joann's website, www.JoannCorley.com. And there's a little video you can see right over there on the lower right of the screenshot. You got to watch it. It's fun. It's all about how to be creative. So if you're in any kind of company, or if you think you're in a company but you're not sure and you just want to be more creative, this is a good video and it's fun. Joann, you do a really good job on that. I love your energy level and your focus. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I consider myself an HR professional, but a very unconventional one because my history regarding HR is I started out, first of all, in the insurance industry, and that's what got me into HR in terms of benefits management, and then ended up being a recruiter for a short time for a boutique firm in Chicago. And from that segued into coaching and training. And so I've had a unique perspective in that I started out as a traditional HR professional and then moved into doing seminars basically in a more public setting. So I've had the great privilege of traveling all over North America, and I've spoken in every major city in the U.S. and every state in the country. And I've had the opportunity to have a variety of people in my seminars on from like all different walks of life, public, not-for-profits, government. And so I feel like in a lot of ways the past 13 years of traveling have given me a bird's eye view of really what I call the everyday worker and the everyday manager and the everyday leader. And I think that perspective has really, that experience has shaped a lot of attitudes and feelings I have about employee training, the role of HR, and sort of the state of the union of HR and the employee dynamics today in our workforce.
Wow, that's actually almost scary, isn't it?
It kind of is because, and it leads to sometimes a bit of frustration because I can't tell you how many times I've heard of this gulf between managers and the everyday worker and the HR department. And part of what my role is, I believe now, is to sort of try to marry the two. So I have a traditional blog about professional development, but I also have an HR blog. And because I'm speaking from the voice of an HR professional as well, trying to support and help and do what I can, but also being honest about how we need to be internal advocates, internal consultants, entrepreneurs. I think sometimes HR departments are treated like stepchildren.
Yeah, that's to a point. You know, it's interesting. One thing that happens when you look at management is that a lot of managers, and I haven't traveled as many states as you have, but I've been to quite a few different places in the U.S., a lot of companies. It is amazing how many managers have no idea who's under them, where they are, or never even get out of their offices.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, it still occurs. You know, I have people under me. Oh yes. Shut up, slaves. Go do your job. It's really rather interesting. They just don't. They're not involved.
Yeah.
And of course, that makes for crappy management, but that's another issue.
Yeah. There's, what's interesting is the latest, about a year or so ago, I looked at the U.S. labor statistics for the number of people that have that designation, and that's not even counting the designation of supervisor. And as of my reading, about a year ago, it was 6 million people have the designation, official designation of manager. 6 million.
Wow.
And of those, probably 1 million may have had some management training.
May have. Yeah.
Once, or have an idea, or most people get promoted from within. They say, "Hey, you did a pretty good job packing boxes, so now you're going to be the manager."
Yeah.
We had this happen. Now, Kirsten, you've been in media for a long time.
Yeah.
We've had probably 3 different quote unquote art directors or graphic directors, and every time, in fact, we stopped doing it. Every time we hired or promoted somebody to become a graphic or media manager, Adolf Hitler came in. It was like, wait a minute, what just happened here?
Yeah, there's something about the title that changes how people think.
But I've seen that more in media people than I have in almost any other kind of type person. It's just real interesting. And media people, for the most part, tend to be pretty nice, pretty easy, pretty creative. They're kind of laid back. They may have drama, but they're fairly laid back. But
just a little.
Just a little. But then, when you make them, okay, you're now in charge. I'm the boss.
Yeah. You put them in charge, and all of a sudden it's my way or the highway, and you will do it like this. And what do you mean I have to listen?
We had one. Whoa. I've told the story in other places, but we had one group where we had a girl that we made a manager. She was really good. She was a good worker. She wasn't a bad manager, but we had one senior graphic artist with her who was also a very good graphic artist, but didn't like to be managed. So it got into this. She's keeping little notches every time he's on the phone. He's keeping notches every time she asks him where something is. So they're both keeping little notches of everything that's going on. And one day it all just blows up to a screaming fest, and he stomps out the door. And so we took him to a restaurant, sat him down, and said, "What's the problem?" And his comment was, "I get screamed at home. I don't need it at work. At least at home I get sex."
Yes, which we're not providing at work.
That's exactly. And I've never been in a meeting where somebody actually just came out, if I was at least getting sex, it'd be better. And I'm just going, oh gosh. All right, how do we deal with this one? So we fed them, got them full, and they got happier, and they agreed that it was just really they weren't communicating at all with each other.
Yeah.
But it was just a fascinating, thing. And we had another one, the nicest guy on earth. The minute he became a manager, it was everybody was an expletive. Hey, expletive. Hey, expletive. And you're going, that's not a good management style.
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, go ahead.
There's something about the creativity and passion that means that, they just want to do such a good job that they throw their passion into it, and the passion becomes
a cattle
edginess.
prod. A cattle prod.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to insert my HR kind of thing in here too, because in developing personalities, particularly let's say in the arts and the media, there are a lot of people who are right-brained people in that arena, and the right brain is really the emotional part of the brain. So it's kind of like when you get a right brain person who may not be, I'm just kind of throwing maturity out there, I'm using that word loosely, who have some maturity levels to deal with. Sometimes that it's kind of like an emotional person on steroids, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or when you give someone who's a very emotional, passionate person anyway, and then you give them power over someone or something, then it turns into, it expands sometimes the negative parts of their personality.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes interesting. We just finally said, you know what, we're either going to offer them cattle prods so that at least they can be useful as their it's interesting. It became such an issue. We just decided to contract graphics out when we do anything really advanced because it was easier. We didn't have to deal with it.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's not like it's the intention isn't malicious. The intention isn't I'm going to become a monster. There's something about I really need to make sure this works. Right. Only the communication gap is huge.
Yeah, right. And Joann, you made a really good point because they are very creative people. But that doesn't mean the executive function is probably as mature in some cases as in maybe another type of. They're different.
Right, and that also holds true for technology.
Oh, I know. I was an IT pro for 25 years. Believe me, I mean, we used to say throw some meat under the under the door, feed them, and you could just hear the.
Right.
They were not friendly people. Some of them.
Right, and so it's really, from an HR perspective, it's kind of interesting because many people, and Rick, you so relate to this as a technology person now on the media side with the creative side, and Kirsten as well, that people are promoted who may not even really want to be managers because of the lack of creative career pathing within organizations. So perhaps the only way to earn more money is through a career path that's really not suited for them.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What's your advice for people who are put in that role and they want to do well, but there's just the communication skills aren't there? How do they get those?
Yeah, first of all, if anybody feels that they need help, there are lots of great seminars and workshops on the market to go to. I'm a huge proponent, and that's one of the motivations behind creating the app. I wanted anybody who wanted help to be able to have access to it where it was, accessible and affordable, where they didn't have to rely on their company for their own professional competency.
I'm showing your app right now.
Yeah, and to be honest with you...
Actually, let me zoom in on you, Kirsten.
Here we go. Zoom.
You want to put it closer to the camera? Move the phone closer?
There's Joann's app.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So the cool part about that is, as a subscriber to the app is free, and there's some free content, and then there's premium content. And if you get premium content, you also get access to me. Because here's my other belief, and I think this is what I call the 21st century way of learning, is that it's going to take having somebody, a professional in your back pocket that you can rely on to get help. It used to be back in the day, and I'm not going to say how long ago that was, but back in the day,
when you were
coaching, 5. Okay, yeah, exactly. Coaching was only reserved for executives or middle managers.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Very high end, very expensive. But now, you can get effective coaching at very reasonable rates. It can be affordable, and I think professionals now more than ever need to add coaching to their repertoire.
Now here's a question for you. This is sorry for the interruption, but this is something I see all the time. I'm probably older than you are because I'm older than everybody I know just about right now. But but the good thing is Kirsten's catching up quickly to me, so that's okay.
Yes, I age fast.
Okay.
I age twice as fast as Rick.
One thing I've seen, this is a trend that actually I find bothersome. I see a lot of coaches who've had zero experience coaching people in things that they know nothing about. And that seems to be a real trend right now. We've minimized experience and maximized maybe personality, maybe just guts, but they have no real background in what they're doing. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, and this is the and I'm glad you're bringing it up because that is the quandary. The quandary is for two reasons. Number one, because there have been a lot of downsizing. A lot of people are going into coaching as a possible career path because they're now they've been downside out of traditional corporate America. And there are some people who have garnered expertise in their own work experience that they can translate into good advice giving. And then there are people who do have a natural gift for, guiding someone from point A to point B. And then there are some people who, you kind of wonder what they're doing. And I think, so here's my belief, Rick. I think sometimes people are hesitant to get a coach because they don't know where to start. And they're so afraid they're going to waste money on someone who's going to waste their time.
That's valid.
So I think it's the industry is flooded now. And there's certainly courses you can take. You can get certified as a coach, and then and then in my situation, I'm a trainer / coach. So a lot of my coaching is really sort of one-on-one training, so to speak.
Well, what I find interesting is I've actually hired a couple coaches. I've hired a woman in the UK for advice on steering a part of my business, and I chose her because of her online content and her online profile and advice, and she gave away a lot of free information that allowed me to try her essentially before I bought her.
Right. Yeah, and to be honest, I think that's very important. If you can, like when I before someone engages me, we have a session or two before they even engage me. That's like the marketing thing of try it before you buy it. Because if it's not a good rapport, or if I find out I really can't help them, I'll direct them to someone else. But part of it has got to be good rapport, and do I have the knowledge to really meet the deliverable, so to speak, for this person?
Yes.
And that's and I think what's great about like blogging and being online is a lot of who you are and a lot of your expertise can be put out there for free, so people can like, for a perfect example, I have an initial coaching call with someone on Saturday, and she said, I researched career coaches. You were on my list of people to narrow down, and then after I'd read through your website and saw the scope of what you do, I decided to pick you.
Yep.
And I think the online information, having the blogs, all those things are very helpful to helping someone make a decision, and then some initial phone calls as well, you know. And it could be from any place in the world. So, Kirsten, I appreciate your point. I had an internet marketer that was from the UK, and we did Skype for quite a while, and she advised me, and I was so grateful. I did, you know, and she was in the UK.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's wonderful, and it's also, there's an interesting. I don't think it's new, but there's an interesting behavior right now for certain people on the internet who are professionals that's their main way of reaching people. Is there's a philosophy about, I give away a lot, but it's not giving away the farm. It's not, you know, you give them free information and make no money. It's part of your career is to be giving people things that you may help them without there being a price tag attached, because what you're building is your relationship with people.
Wait, it's also interesting because a lot of people think that if I give too much out, then you're going to lose what you have. And I keep telling people, you can give anyone the keys to the kingdom and they'll brush their teeth with them. They won't know what to do with it. You can, and nothing's a secret. You can just, it's right out in the open. Nobody sees it. In fact, the more blatant it is, the more it's just invisible. So you can tell somebody, here's how you run a good consulting business. Here's how you run a good media company. Here's how you become a good trainer. Here's how you become a good HR professional. It means nothing. You can tell them exactly what they have to do, but until they're ready to get it, they probably won't even see it, hear it, notice it, or realize what you just gave them, which could be priceless.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of like that phrase, you know, when a student is ready, the teacher will come.
Yeah.
You know, you attract, and that's why, you know, an e-presence is really super important, because you want to be able to attract the best or the best fit for you and the client in terms of the services that you deliver. So, it's, you know, super important.
What is the media that you like to use most? Is it Twitter? What is your favorite way of reaching people?
From a social media standpoint, Twitter is my favorite, and you know, and to be honest, I thought it was kind of silly at first, and now it's totally grown on me. And you know, I was trying. My goal was, and I'm not traveling as much this year, and my goal was to get some online courses developed, to develop the app, and sort of redirect and reframe my business a little bit this year. So, and then to try and integrate social media, build out that social media infrastructure, and then, you know, and kind of, you know, grow my business in some different ways. And so I was trying Facebook and Twitter earlier this year, and blogging, of course, and those sorts of things. But Facebook just didn't seem to do it for me. Twitter did, and I think it was because I could express something and get it out very quickly. And it was easier to grow followers that way and to interact with people. I feel very connected to people on Twitter. It's easier that way, you know? So that's actually my social media of choice is Twitter right now.
Twitter is actually pretty cool. It works well. It doesn't require a ton of effort. It just requires consistency in posting. I discovered you on Twitter. And
yeah, exactly.
Not even sure how, but all of a sudden I go, oh, that looks like an interesting person.
And that's how I met you, Rick.
That's true. That's true. She followed me on Twitter. I asked her to be on the show, on another show that we do. And then we liked her so much, we decided to torture her and give her a show.
So. There you go.
Oh, you forget the whole asking you to present at my conference thing.
That too. And we were thinking, we need to do another show. And hey, you know, here's a good person.
She's mouthy.
Yeah, she's a little edgy. We like edgy. Edgy's good.
You guys both have really great media voices, too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Rick has the whole Late Night with Rick Zanotti voice.
Oh my, yes, yeah, that's another show.
Yeah, when I retire, I think I'm just going to go on midnight. You know, just help sick people at midnight. It's like, hey, it's midnight. It's time to listen to some music.
Right. Oh, my. Okay.
All right, here we go. It's all microphones, trust me.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the 1%?
The 1%. The 1% is based on a premise, and it originally surfaced when I was doing time management seminars, which evolved into one of my more popular seminars called Organizational Strategies for the Overwhelmed, which is now a book and audio and all that. And the basic premise is this: if you can improve by 1% a day, you can double your effectiveness in 70 days. And so it's actually called the slight edge rule. And when you think about creating a new behavior, if you just keep trying every single day, eventually it becomes natural. Now, the key to that is consistency. So, in my workshops, I say a little bit done consistently goes a long way. And so what's the challenge in that? The challenge is being consistent. But it's just a little bit. And with anything anybody wants to change, a lot of times people try to attempt changes in big, humongous bites. And it becomes extremely overwhelming and discouraging. But if you attempt something like even trying to manage an employee or coach an employee or change the productivity of your team, if you just attempt a little something every day and you're consistent in that one thing, eventually it translates into a measured result or measured behavior change. And that's the premise, the 1% edge.
It's trying to get that brain to groove a little bit differently, right?
And exactly, that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, you're basically creating a new neural pathway, and it just takes a while for it to go from conscious competence to unconscious.
Yeah, I read somewhere it takes about 3 months minimum. It's about a 3-month process, maybe shorter, maybe longer, depending on how focused you are.
That's exactly it, Rick. That's exactly it. Yeah. So, the thing is, and what I've discovered when I first started doing seminars publicly is, and that's going, we're kind of circling back to one of our key themes today is employee training. I became very frustrated with the expectation that one training day or one seminar or workshop was going to magically change people into somebody different,
Yes.
Like one of my clients was a national seminars company. One of the more popular topics that they had was how to deal with difficult people.
I've never met one. Have you?
I said to my classes, I don't teach that class. You know why? Because guess who gets sent to them?
The difficult people.
And they're thinking, why am I here? And people back in the office are saying, because we need a break from you. Yep. And in reality, why they're being sent. A boss would say, troubled employee, send them to a seminar.
That's right. Yeah.
The very thought implies that seminar is going to fix them. And that premise for making decisions in training and development has wasted millions of dollars in corporate training.
And those people come back and are actually more obnoxious because now they know how to work around the system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they learned other tricks. They probably
That's right. Hey,
Yeah.
here's how I can really irritate people. This is good.
Yeah, that ties in beautifully to my experience in software training, which is, it's not magic. It's not bippity boppity boo. You don't go to one day of Photoshop and poof, you're a Photoshop expert.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
I set people up for, here's what you're going to be learning over the next year of your life, over the next 6 months.
Right.
And the managers send them and go, well, now they're masters. It's like,
Exactly.
Well,
how does that happen?
This holds so true also. How many people know PowerPoint? The average trainer, the average HR pro, pretty much everybody knows PowerPoint, sort of.
Yeah.
So then they open it up. My wife is a perfect example of this. She goes, I want to learn PowerPoint and be creative. That's going to be interesting.
Uh-oh.
So what happens is she gets into PowerPoint and she sees a white screen and goes, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So you have this situation of, okay, really the issue is the tool's easy to learn, but the creative process of using that tool is quite different.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's the same thing with management. It's the same thing with almost everything. The mechanics aren't that hard usually. How you implement it, what you do with it, that's a whole new ballpark.
Right. And so our phrase is, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yes.
So if you learn something and you don't have a real-time context to use it in habitually, you'll forget it. So when I teach a seminar, I say, I hate to tell you all this, but you will forget most of what you've heard from me today in about 30 days.
Well, you just said the key word too, that is becoming, finally, in the business world and in academia and everywhere, context.
Yeah.
People don't learn anything if they don't have any relationship to what they're learning. It makes no sense to them.
Exactly.
Why am I here?
Yeah, and so what's interesting is, and this is what I learned because I've done a lot of creativity day camps for trainers and strategy for trainers in terms of rolling out employee training and development. And what I say is this: is if you don't have a plan, like a lot of energy. Here's my belief. Particularly when e-learning, I'm dating myself here, when e-learning came on the scene, and that was going to, that's the next big thing, and we won't hardly have any face-to-face trainings anymore, which we now know is not true. What happened is that a lot of focus is spent on how to get the learning, how to receive the information. But what I've discovered is very little focus is spent on how to set up a structure to apply what people have learned once they've left a seminar or once they've closed off an e-learning module or whatever the delivery method is. And if you look at the dollars spent in training, Rick and Kirsten, most of it is spent on the receiving of information, not the application of the information.
True.
Yes.
80-20. And I think that's reverse. I mean, I think that's really completely out of balance. And so, Rick and I were talking about some of the authoring tools, for example, for e-learning. And, a lot of money goes into LMSs, learning management systems, and that kind of thing. And yet there will be very little spent on application, on integrating management into a training and development, dynamic performance management systems. Very little of that is actually done.
Yes. Yeah, and in the chat pod, you got to leave us saying, yes, so true.
Yeah. So that there's a little bit of frustration there, and that was my reason for creating the HR blog. That's one of my reasons for it. One of the premises of using the app is it's called bite-sized learning. You learn a little bit, and then you apply it, and then you have a community of people, a social learning, a community of people to share what you've learned, because inside the app, there's actually a discussion wall. And you can actually start various discussions in the app around various things that you're learning. And I've cleaned it out so it's empty right now, but people can start a discussion all in there, and it's about how can I integrate this in my everyday. In fact, I ask people to send me information on what they're learning once a week, like homework, so that they're, trying to embed the learning in their everyday work experience and to have that mobile and with them. I mean, I envision people having that app and training their teams with the information from the app because it's right there in their hand anyway.
Yep, and you're making them accountable too.
And that's exactly right. And accountability is a component. And so here's the thing. People have different modalities of how they like to take in information. But the bottom line is, whatever modality they're choosing, they still have to have a context, and they still have to apply it repeatedly to get their aha moments, and apply it often enough to have a shift in thinking and a shift in behavior.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's interesting because if you look at training today, especially in corporations, it's the compliance model. It's the lawyer model. The lawyers say we have to be careful for lawsuits. So everybody has to go through horrific compliance training that's boring as all else, mind-numbing. And that's all training. So they say, well, all training should be just like compliance training. So as a result, we have some clients that we've developed a lot of training for that I would say some of the worst work we've ever done because that's what they want. And you keep arguing, well, don't you want to do something better? No. And it's a little frustrating because you know that it's not effective.
Right, and that's what gives corporate training a bad name, and I think that's what I sort of fight with and for on a regular basis. I mean, I don't think you're ever going to, there's something about being with people and the energy in a room of classroom training, but that's just one very small component of classroom delivery, because I know training is the application thereof, so I would say classroom learning. That part's part of it, but again, no matter what the modality is, they've got to be able to say, how am I going to apply this? And then have the accountability, someone they can talk to, flush stuff out with, all that sort of thing. But to that point, I'm still amazed, even with e-learning and some of the work that you've done, Rick, and you speak to the point of, I'm so amazed that in an HR department, for example, I had an appointment with a major university here in the Atlanta area, and it was a manager, a director of a department, and she said she didn't want to go through HR anymore to train her managers because the training was basically a book, a slide deck that they went through.
Right.
And I was literally flabbergasted.
Yeah, that's not abnormal.
Yeah, and that's my point, and that's just that blows my mind.
Yeah, that's not training.
Yeah, it's not training, right? And so that makes them want to go back, and makes them want to use it.
Well, somebody, I read something recent that was really good. It said, well, we don't want to train this person because what if we train them and spend all the money and they leave? And the response back was, well, what if you don't and they stay?
That's a good response. I like that.
And it really makes sense, because if you don't invest in your people in one way or another, you're not getting much out of it.
Right.
In the long run, they're going to stay where they're at, and you're not going to get much more out of them. They won't grow, you won't grow, and nobody benefits.
Right. That's exactly right.
Brilliant.
It's really a challenge, and I think there's even just a challenge with just HR in general. And I speak as a colleague when I say that I just I just feel bad in some respects, because I know everybody's trying, but when you look at the scale of knowledge of HR professionals from entry level, or I just got it, or a lot of people are in HR by default, not because they really want to be there, and know so little about human behavior, and it's more just more of an administrative, executing benefits or paperwork, versus really managing the human resource or managing the human capital of an organization. See, it's such a broad scope, of that. I also think, and one other thing I wanted to say is, I always thought it was kind of interesting how there's a separation between SHRM and ASTD.
Right.
And I just find that so curious.
Yeah.
Well, that's because associations tend to be mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's almost a Hatfields and McCoys element now.
Oh, mm-hmm. Yeah, because and yet it's all about managing human resource.
Well, also, I think one of the issues is SHRM is run mostly by lawyers nowadays, and ASTD is run mostly by trainers.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be part of the reason why you're seeing that divide. They don't really talk to each other that much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and SHRM is more the administrative part of HR, where, in theory, ASTD is more the developmental part of HR.
Right. Now, if SHRM was smart, they could sue the heck out of ASTD and take them out of that business.
Don't start. Don't start.
Just kidding.
Oh, my God.
You heard it here first, folks.
That's right. You heard it here first. That's we just gave out some strategy.
Lordy. Well, Speaking of the media part, because I know that Rick, you and Kirsten that's a lot of your focus as well. I think that incorporating various media is more and more important in engaging. I'm going to segue into another component of our discussion, and that is the younger generation.
Right.
Like gamification is becoming really popular, and using movies to teach various behaviors, and because we're in newer generations. I call it the MTV generation and beyond, because their way of ingesting information is much more visual and media centered and technology centered.
Yes.
Though there is one problem with that too, and this is something that they're writing a lot about, that Generation Y and even X to a point, not as much. Critical thinking, kind of goes by the wayside. There is none. If it's not visually in front of you, you don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, it's also called common sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, common sense isn't that common, is it?
No, it's uncommon sense right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I mean, we get a lot of kids out of school, and it really varies from really they're great kids to how did you get through school? It's just rather interesting. But there are some common denominators of very few read. Reading is not a common trait anymore. Knowledge is superficial. Mm-hmm. They glean a little bit of information and run with it, but they don't have the full picture. Mm-hmm. We had a guy that used to work with us years ago, and he said, "I'm a big picture kind of guy." And my comment was, "Yeah, but a really small screen."
Oh, but
I like that. I like
that. It's
all right,
like,
Rick, where's the sound effect?
Yeah,
come on.
Let's see. What do we have here? There we go.
There we go.
Go and ponder that one.
That's not an age thing, though. That's a personality
thing. It is, but it's more prevalent among certain, I would say, among certain age groups. And we can stereotype. Stereotype actually fits in most cases. But it's just an interesting kind of aside. It's like, hello. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very interesting.
So Joann, I'm actually looking at the 21st Century Learning page of the 1% Coach. It says the Power 3 in Learning: Internet Mobility and Digital Socialization. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I really believe in professionals becoming more empowered, that they have to break out of the traditional mold of training and all of the challenges that we talked about related to a company's traditional HR approach to training. We've just got to bust out. And one of the ways of busting out is leveraging what's already in the marketplace, and that is, first of all, mobility. I wrote an article. In fact, I'm a North American content partner for the Telegraph UK in their jobs section. One of my first articles I wrote for them was Going Mobile, Strange New Powers. And seeing that a phone is no longer just a phone, but it is a tool to do a lot of different things with, and from my perspective, to develop professionally and to develop competencies and knowledge. So certainly mobility is a part of that. And then there also is a crowdsourcing, being able to be more social in how we're learning. Now, of course, we're using sophisticated terms for things that have been around a long time. I mean, okay, the water cooler. How many things did we learn in the office around the water cooler?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. So we've been specialized for a long time in learning. Now they're taking that sort of low-key and informal learning. They not call it informal learning. You know, we got to attach very sophisticated names. Things have been going on since the cave days. Yeah. And put it out. But it's really social learning. It's taking it. Okay, so the learning for an organization doesn't reside in the HR department, and it no longer resides primarily with subject matter experts. But now it's being dispersed into the general populace, so that we can learn bigger, quicker, faster, better, be more responsive. So it's the mobile, and the social. And of course, when things are digital, it just makes it fast.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you could use Twitter as a training tool. We sort of do that anyway. When I tweet out, a phrase or a comment or a tip, all that can be, or you're relaying a best practice, let's say, in a customer service environment. There's a lot of ways that digital and social can be used, but then that brings up a whole nother topic, because I'm sure you've run across just really the challenges that HR and leaders are having an organization with. What do you do with social? What do you do with social media? What do you do with it in the work environment? How do you leverage that?
And we had our first employee, beginning of this year actually, who we had to let go because it was an internet addiction that we tried, could not break it. I mean, and mind you, we all like the internet. Everybody in the company is on the internet at one point or other. Most of us are somewhat on social media. This kid could not get off of social media. It was 10 minutes of internet, 1 minute of work. 10 minutes, and it was showing. We were blaming somebody else for all the problems, and we realized, hey, wait a minute. It's this person, because that was the person who was QAing everybody. Nothing was being QA'd. And we have a social media policy and blah, blah, blah. It didn't matter. And that was our first that we actually experienced. Good kid, nice kid, bright enough, but, could not get over it. And I know a lot of other companies are going through the same thing where, and then of course the other thing is, and she didn't have this problem, but some of them have the problem with they don't understand what is secure in a company and what isn't.
Right.
It's all just spread it everywhere.
Right. And see, so, one of the topics that I train on and coach on is emotional intelligence. And, it's emotional intelligence, one of the components is really being aware. Being aware of your surroundings, being aware of the consequences, being aware of what's appropriate and what's not. Of course, now generationally, what's appropriate and what's not, that's a whole different opinion from one generation to the next. Some people put on their Facebook page, I just want to just scream, and other people think it's appropriate.
Right.
But I think that is what social media does. Is I think it has exacerbated the differences in generations. Even. Well,
it's funny. We had a person. I worked as a director of IT in a company years ago, and all of a sudden one day out of the bathroom we hear, major screaming. Everybody started running towards the bathroom saying, what the heck just happened? And as we get there, the customer service manager comes out with her pillow and goes, primotherapy training, and just walks away.
Oh, God.
Serious?
I was, we're still adrenaline up, and she goes, primal scream therapy, and she just walked away, and we just went, wow, that's an interesting one. How do we deal with this one? So every time she felt stressed, she would go and scream.
Well, the pillow didn't work.
The pillow? Oh no, that was through the pillow.
I know, but it clearly didn't work.
It was scary. I mean, and I was 2 offices away. And these are all compartmentalized offices. We could hear it. Well, it was a shriek. I mean, it was scary.
Wow.
The age thing that you mentioned actually made me think of when I was getting certified as a technical trainer. It was a bunch of trainers that all went to one city and went through this, basically justifying that we knew what we knew. Making a video to prove that we know what we know. And most of us were of the same age bracket, same age cohort, and there was a couple of kids there. And one of them, we had to sit down and say, every time you say whatever, we think that's snotty.
Right.
And he's like, no, I'm just being casual. I'm like, yes, but it comes across to old people as snotty.
I don't know. We had a teenager at home, and she said, she would say whatever whenever she didn't want to hear you. So... I think whatever is dismissive.
Yeah,
dismissive, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Close of a sentence, like, yeah, and you could do this or whatever.
Or whatever. Well, that's different. That's different than you talk to someone, they go whatever.
He did it all the time, and we were like, no, you don't understand. That seems like you don't care.
Well, at that point, you hand the person a lit stick of dynamite and see how they whatever it.
Keep in mind, this is the same kid that we had to videotape each other. And he put his hands in his pockets and he rocked back and forth when he was talking. Now, grown man, slightly baggy pants, hands in his pockets, rocking back and forth. The imagery probably comes across to you guys.
Yeah, that's in my head.
Going, oh my God. And we tried telling him, you can't do that. And then we showed him the video and he went, oh my God, what am I doing? Because he had to see it.
Yeah.
He had to see it to stop doing that behavior.
Yeah. Well, guys, guess what? We are going on almost 50 minutes.
Yes.
So wow. I think we're going to have to cut this. And Joann, we'd love to have you back.
Oh, it'd be great.
You are a blast. You're fun. You know a lot. We'd love to have you back. And we have another show, too, the eLearn Chat, you'd also be very good at.
Oh, great. Very good. Very good.
We have a lot of chats.
Not chats, that's right. It's really fun to be able to just have a really open and honest discussion with colleagues. I think people need to hear, even if they're just hearing it in the background, to say, you know what, yes, amen. There's everybody needs a voice to what's going on in the workplace today.
Definitely.
Yep.
Definitely. And you got some response in the chat pod of yes, totally agree.
Good.
So excellent.
And those people have been taken away, right?
He's so subtle.
Oh, mercy. Yeah, that's right. Terminate.
Yeah, you're good.
There we go.
Hopefully we're worried about the Adobe snipers. Now it's going to be the learning development sniper.
I love your sound effects. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a little soundboard. This is the soundboard.
This is the mini Kramer. I love that. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, we can have some fun with all this.
Yeah.
Well, you gave out a lot of worthwhile information there.
Yeah, I thanks so much for having me. And I look forward to connecting with you at some point.
That sounds great. No, we're looking forward to it too. And for all of you guys in the chat room, thanks so much for being there. And if you're watching the recording on YouTube, please subscribe. We love having you there. So for everyone, thanks, Kirsten, Joann, a real pleasure. Glad we finally got to meet.
Absolutely.
And we will see you guys next week on eMediaChat. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.